Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today, let's start the Sanhedrin daf Mem Vav. We are going to begin on Mem Vav Amud Aleph, about 8 lines from the top. Ish Toilin V'chu. So there is, according to this opinion, that the man is hung in the way that is facing the people, and a woman is hung facing the tree. Alternatively, we say that the woman is not hung at all. So my time in the Rabbanan is going to cry. We hang him and not her. It just means without clothes. When a man sins, ish lo isha. So I'm on a man, not a woman. What does he do with this pasuk? What does that mean? It says Rashi, the Afagav the Beskila, even though this 13-year-old kid will get skila, asakro miyute dechsev ish, uben sar myra loy havi ish, dim hayaroyal haylid lo hanida dechsev ben. Interesting. Even though he's 13 years old, in which we normally say he's you're an ish, but it's not in this case. So he apparently choyla means he's not hung. Okay. So it's Lamuti ben Sarmar. Rabasani ben Sar Myra Nisko Venitla, Tiber as we Taki is hung. El Amar Nachman Yitzchak Rabbi ben Sarmar. It's included. So my time with the Amrakra, the Chiyab Ish Chet Ish V'lo Ben Chet. What does that mean? Mish al Chato Nerag. Someone because of a sin who was killed, Yatsa ben Sar Myra shall shum Saifa Nerag. He's not killed because of a crime that Taka deserves to be killed, but he's killed because he is in the future potential that someone he potentially may kill. So even though you have two miyats, and therefore we end up including. And on this Rashi quotes the famous Gemara, we'll see later in Daf Ayin Beis, that technically he didn't do anything wrong. What did he do? He stole some meat, stole some wine, but nonetheless, Hagia Taira was Soif Daito. We know at the end he's going to end up not stealing from his parents because the parents aren't going to have any more money, or they'll wise up. He's going to go to the Parshas Drachim and he's going to kill people. Okay. In Mirachim El Rabbi, it's interesting. Rashi here Kalemer Midihi B'Taira. Weiter. Shamlahem Rabbi Eliezer V'Leishim and Menshach Dal Nashim Chulu. But Shimon Shetach killed multiple women by hanging. The only time we said that you can't kill two people on the same day is if the death penalties are different. And therefore, because they're involved in machshefa, so therefore they get the same death penalty, and therefore you can kill multiple people. It was the same Misa, and they said that you can't do that. What do you mean? Apparently you could. If they're two totally separate sins. If everything is the same, they're donen. And says Rashi, why? Because if it's misa achas donen, the time of mishum lo actually nui b'tervaya ho. But misa achas can't shtei misa going shtei averos shin daimus. Vehein misa achas can going Shabbos v'odazar v'kosh can shtei misas mamish. Fine. So therefore, it's possible that these women, one did oiv, one did yadaini. Okay. So really, technically, they shouldn't have all been killed on the same day because even though it's the same misa, but it's considered to be it's ke'en shtei misais. So masav ravada barava ain't done in shnayim b'yom echad. We don't do two in the same day. We are feeling with knife and no fs. If it's mamish, the man and the woman that had relations with one another. So taking Rav Chisda b'bas kayin ubu Allah. That's because we're talking about a bas kayin and the one she was boil. Bas kayin v'zayim zomeha. So in this case, he's killed by the third kat of the Adam. but also the Edom Zayman were killed too. Or if we're dealing with a Bas Kayin, we're looking at this Rashi, the Igaba Daini, okay. So Uboawa. So the Bas Kayin, who was in a Russo Nesua, and her boil, that she gets Sreifa because she's a Bas Kayin, of a Boala Nidin Kashtar boil Basisho the boil Russo Baskila Uboil Nesua Bachanek. If you're boil on a woman from Erison, Narmarasa is a din skila, but if it was just during the time of Nesuin, then it's a regular case of Eishasish, which the punishment is chenek. So there are different death penalties. Or says Rashi, Bas Kayin Uvazaimis Ameha, Shehi Vehain Neragin, they get killed, Veloy Bemisachas, Tehi Besreifa, Vein Bemisas a boil. That's what he said, because the passage is Kasher Zomam Lasso, so Achid Lo Achaisoi. It's the beginning of Makkah says. That sometimes if there's two death penalties, we'll give the Edom Zayman will get the man's death penalty, not the woman's. Okay. Anyway, the point is, even though you can say, well, what do you mean? It's knife and no FS, but they're different misas. Fine, that's the pshat. Tanya Belezer ben Yankov Oimer Shemati Shebeistin Makin Va'inshin Shalom and Atayra. I heard that the basin will sometimes hit and punish Shalom and Atayra. The V'lo Lavor al Dever Tyra is not to violate the Torah, El Kidei Lasso Siag Torah. Is to make a fence to protect the Torah. Mas Be'achad Sherachav al Sus B'Shabbos, a guy's riding a horse on Shabbos, B'mei Yavanim, V'yavilu Beistin V'sakluhu. Now, what did this guy do? It wasn't Mamish Machal Shabbos Isidorai. So, L'mnei Shroyel Kach, El Shemeshah Srichel Kach. They had to step up their game and do this because it was a very serious, precocious time for Klal Yisrael. Shul Mais, another time, B'adam Echa Shetiach Hasishto Tachas Atena, V'havyula Beistin V'hilkuhu. There's another situation, as Rashi says, because the other case was the Shlus Mi'alma. He was a Tiach, when he was Ba'aleha. He had Tashmish with her, Tachas Atena Makam Goloi. He basically had Tashmish in an open area with his wife. So, what did he deserve to be punished for that? So, maybe it's Pritzus and stuff. Okay, so sometimes Shimon ben Shetach also, he did this, even though it's not the normal circumstance, but he did it for a purpose. He did this for a reason. And Rashi in the Mishnah, which we didn't see yesterday, says like this. Gemara Mefarish to B'shtei Averis Kaimer. Din Royasehim Shavai. So Shimon Shetach Shahutzracholakach. Shimon Shetach did this at a case of necessity. Shahi Ben Isra Prutzais Bikshafim. The Yidden, the Jewish girls, were engaged in witchcraft. They also siag l'shah. And so he did this for this one moment, but told Lafarsuma Lamilsa to publicize. But done as kulam b'yaymecha to judge them all in one day. Nibnei Kuroivehem Shlo Yiskashu Hatzilam. Okay. Interesting Rashi. Let's see the next Mishnah. It says Mastis, Kates and Toyonai. So what exactly is the procedure of hanging a person? So Mashkin as a kaira, so they stick a beam in the archetz into the ground, the eitz yaitze, and the wood comes out, umekiv shtei yadav zu al gav zu, and he puts close his hands one on top of the other, v'toyel oisai, and from there he hangs. Actually, the beam will be like leaning against the wall of a toyel oiso, and he'll be hung there. That's how butchers behaved. And then we untie him immediately. He's only up there for a short amount of time. And if let's say Taka, he stayed there for an extended period of time overnight, then it's actually a negative prohibition. You have to bury him. There's an isulina that a person, even though the guy deserved death, but we're not going to keep him hung there overnight. And as Rashi over there in Chumash said, it's because we're B'Tselem Elokim. Even a murderer is B'Tselem Elokim. And therefore, just like a person would walk by and be confused between seeing a person who's like identical twin brother who's a king, and you'll think that this guy was the king being hung. So to a Kadosh Baruch Hu, since we're B'Tselem Elokim, he can't stay up for a long time. Kolomer Mnei Mazet Toloi Mnei Shabinachas Hashem. He cursed Hashem. V'Nimtza Hashem Shemayim Eschalel. And all of a sudden, if you end up keeping him there for an extended period of time, it's actually going to cause a greater chil Hashem, because people are going to talk about what he did. Amar Meir b'shashoimer sha'adam etstayer. When a person is in pain, shchina mal lashaimer. So what does the shchina say? Kalni m'roishi, kalni m'rozorai. Heavy's my head, heavy's my arms. Im kain hamakayim etstayer al damim shel rishayim. So Hashem is in pain for the blood of the wicked. Shenishbach, that's spilled. So kavachaymer al damim shel sadikim. So if Hashem feels this anguish and pain for these people who are Rishayim, kavachomer for a tzaddik. Lozu bilvad amru, el kol hamolin, as any person who you leave the body for an extended period of time, as mesa over say. This issue is not only for a murderer, but it's for any person. You can't just leave a body for extended periods of time. However, if you left the mace for his honor, for example, so if you have a benefit, like for kavod, so the question is it covered to wait for relatives to come a week later to do the burial? That's a stretch. But in order to be able to have all the necessary arrangements, like the Aron Tachrichim, if for whatever reason you couldn't do it that day, so then you do it next night. Now, this person should not be buried at his regular burial plot. Bati Kvaros Hayo Masukanila Basin. Basin had special burial places for these people. Achas Naharagin Lanachnachnim, Viachos and the Skull and the Srafin. Because Skill and Sreifa are the worst, so therefore they get their own burial plot. And who got Harigar, Saif and Chenek, that's the second one. This Achal Habasar, when there's a discomposing of the flesh, Malaktin Eswat Samais, you can actually take the remains, the karbonoisim and kaiman, and bury in the location. L'chayr means back to your burial plot. For koivim boyin, the relatives come, v'shoalim v'shalom, hadayanim v'shalom, ha'edim, kolaymer she'en b'labenu aleichem, that there's nothing harboring in our hearts. Shedin emes dantem. I know that the din that was done was a proper din, as we continue to memvav umedbeis. We don't do avelis. Says Rashi, kadesh shetehe bizyonim kapara. So there should be a kapara, their embarrassment. El oinim bilvad. We will wail. She'en ze kavod laharoy. It's not a cover for the murderer, for the one who's killed. The ein kaparaso nimnemes bekach, and by doing that, the kapara won't get removed. Shein aninus el belev bilvad. Aninus is just in the heart. Shein aninus el belev, as the Mishnah concludes. Okay, fine. Let's look at question 10. Imis ablin oininin al harugi beistin umadua. So as we said, in misablin kadeshahe bizyoino kapara ladam, so that he should have a kapara. And it says in parentheses here, Rafalpi the mechi chazut sar de kavra porta nischaper. Even though if let's he's buried, the burial is also kapara. Kamakim kivan de yidchu. That's going to be a Gemara later on. Avu oinin in malehin we do inui shein mechaparasim nenos v'kachlafi shein and ninos el belev. Okay. Says the Gemara, Tanubanan, Iwu nemer chata v'talisa, that you sin and you were hung, haiso aimer tayon aiso hang, v'yachachach memisin. Then you kill him the way that the kings do it, which is typically with a beheading or a sword. First you kill him with salisa. Before he gets killed, after he's been killed already, then you hang him, hang the dead body. You delay the verdict until close to sunset. You can do Gemar Din. So you kill him right away. So you hang him up. One ties him up, and the other one immediately unties him. So this way you did the mitzvah of hanging, but not too long. The pasuk says, "Eitz Shamiani bein batolish bein machober. Since it says wood, l'chor, that's mashma, whether it's attached or detached. Tamalamer ki kavor, when you bury him, misha ein mechusar el kvura. That's only something when someone's only being missing burial. Yatazeh shemechusar katzitza kvura. You have to first chop down the tree and then do kvura. So it's almost mashma that it shouldn't be mechuber. If you say misha ein mechusar el kvura, yatazeh shemechusar talisha kvura. That so you don't even stick it into the ground, according to him. Rabbanan talisha lav klumhi. Just untaching it is nothing. It doesn't mean like cutting it off, but if you just stick it into a hole and you can just easily lift it up, that's not considered to be a hefsek. Kaloimer memnei mazet tolim memnei shabirach klu Tanya Oimer Meir Mashal Mashal Mahadavar Daimel Shnei Achin Tuumim. As we said, if these two identical twin brothers, Be'ir Ach, same city, Echad Minyui Melech, what's a king? Ve'echad Yatzel Lelistais, the other one went to be a bandit. Siva Melech V'Taluhu, so he was hung. Kol Ra'ai so Oimer HaMelech Talui. Everyone's going to say, oh my goodness, it was the king that was hung. Siva HaMelech V'Hari Duhu. And therefore the king will make an announcement that he should be hung, should be removed. So that's the idea behind that. Okay, it almost sounded like that's part of the Mishnah, but that's a piece unto itself. Which is just very powerful. Which again is talking about the Kadosh Baruch Hu, which as we're B'Tselem Elokim. Amra Meir B'Chul. So my mashma. So Omer Avin Kamandi Omer Kal Leis. It's as though he said, I am not light, which is referring to the Shechina. Armalei Rava Im King Kavod Alai Roishi. My head is heavy. Kavod Alai Zorai, my arm. Miboile, I should say. El Omer Rava Kamandi Omer Kili Alma. It's though to say that the world is light. Says Rashi. Mikane ve'enu roitzel haskir kvedus ba'atzmai. I thought we needed this pasuk for the pasuk shot. To him came nemakra makalo. My klolos ve'emakule l'hachud ha'asi him came nemakra klolos my klolos shmamin atarti. So it's the regular part of the pasuk, but also to tell us that a Kadosh Baruch Hu also is feeling the tsar. V'ozu bavad chulu am Rav Yochim mishum Rav Shimon ben Yochim anayin l'moen as mesai. How do you know that if you leave over a dead body, shoyver olav b'lois? I say to one of covered verenu. Mikan, we learn from here lemoen as mesai that if you keep the mace too long, shoyver b'lois. I say. But then, how do we know that a body should be buried? How do we see that there's a concept of burial in the Torah? So he didn't say anything. So Imser Alma Biyada, the world is given over to your hand to tipshi the boil a mamer ki cover. I don't understand. You ask you a question. The pasuk says explicitly that there's an Indian of kvur ki cover. So Diliavid li Aaron, says Rashi. Avol kvuras haaretz lo mishtamale minei. It's talking about the Aron, but the kavura of the Aretz, it doesn't talk about. So what do you mean tikvarenu? Lo mashmale, that's not mashma anything. V'nema mid ikvert tzadiki. However, the fact that it does mention about the burial of tzadikim, says Rashi, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, Alma de also hasmicha mashani dilma ki heichidul shani moishem and menhagad alma. Minhagim alma that was just a custom. So min kaver Kadosh Baruch Hu Moshe. How about the fact that Moshe was buried by Hashem? It just means they didn't want to change the custom. Maybe it's not an obligation. Tashma v'saftu kol Yisrael v'kaver that everyone mourned and they buried him. Maybe that's still l'shtanim minhaga. Well, yisvadu v'lo yikvaru v'duman al pnei adama you. Again, the l'shtanim minhaga. They went. It means that they went against the custom, that the fact they didn't bury him. That's all it means. It's just maybe it's a minhag right? It's a minig bialma, so it's not necessarily a raya. It says Rashi, the softu will be avia ben Yeravam, the chsev yachia hashiloini, nisnavel of davar zeh l'shvach, yan ki nimna boy davar toiv, you did a good job by not burying him, etc. Mishim bizyoin, okay. So iboyhu, kfura, if we're now we're talking about burial, mishim bizyoinahu is the notion of a bizyoin, says Rashi, shulis vaze, l'ayin kol shiruhu meis v'nikra v'nivke. The whole purpose of burial is because we don't want people to see the body decomposing, and it's a lack of respect. Mishim kaparahu. Maybe it's a kapara that a person's remains are put into the ground, and therefore maybe that's the reason for burial. So l'may nafkamina, you have to bury him anyway. So the person says, "Do not bury me." Lahu gabra, this person referring to himself. If it's because we don't want this body to be decomposed, so it doesn't matter what he says, we're going to do it anyway. If the purpose is for him only, so kapar. Maybe I don't want kapar. So tashma. The fact that we buried all the tzaddikim Avram Yitzchak Yaakov, now mishum kapara tzaddikim go kapar srichi. Avram Yitzchak Yaakov were tzaddikim gemurim. So apparently there's no need to have to do the burial. The whole purpose is for kapara. Right, it says yes. Even Avram Yitzchak Yaakov are not perfect, so they also achieve kapara. Tashma, the safto kol Yisrael v'kavu Yisrael v'yamrit ki heichid haveli kapara hadachnam likver. They should also be buried ki heichid haveli kapara. Let these rishayim get achieve kapara. So the tzaddiku to haveli kapara. So if you're a tzaddik, you should get a kapara. Hanach, these rishayim will have a kapara. We don't want them to have a kapara. Tashma lis v'likvru. So Deloitte to have a kapara, because we don't want them to have a kapara because they were shayim. Iboilhu. So they boil the lifshita. Haspeda, when it comes to the eulogy, is it Yakara Dechaya Havoy? Is the idea that you're showing respect to the person people who are alive, like the mourners? Or Yakara Deshachvil Havi? Or is it Hesped for the honor of the dead? So my nafkimi, they have to do a Hesped anyway. Diermu lo tisadua, do not eulogize me. Inami lafukimi yarshin. To pay people to do a hesped. They used to pay people to do a hespedim. So, is it possible that you actually have to take the money away? Or maybe the relatives are like, you know what? Don't do a hesped on this guy. It's only for our sake, and I don't want to lose the money. So Tashma v'yavo Abraham lispol l'sebel chaysa. That in the beginning part of Chayesara, Abraham cried and mourned and eulogized over his wife Sarah that had died. Now, if it's because of Abraham, Abraham, Mashla Sarah, understand, because of him, he delayed the whole process. Says Rashi, Abraham Yitzchak, until he came from Beis Yitzchak, it says, Abraham Bechlal, that he shaita lo yahavi hasim, he wasn't even there. So Sarah gufa nichale. It was actually good for Sarah kehechi demiyakiru Avraham, in order that Avraham should get honored. Tashma v'safto loy kol Yisrael v'kaver Yisrael v'yamer mishem yikara dechayahu. It's for the honor of the people that are alive. Hadach b'nei karninhu. These other siblings of this guy, of this person, Yeravam, so why are they deserving of honor? So nichol et tzadikeha demikar b'hu inshi. It's good for the tzaddikim that they are honored. Tashma lis v'davul yikru lo nichol et tzaddikim demikri. It's not good that they should be honored by the wicked. Tashma b'shalom tomos, with peace they'll die. Uve mishar pois avoisecha hamalachim harishayim asher hayil fanecha. Kach yisru lacha, so will be burned. Davi adam yismulach. Navi amri mishmi kar dechai who my naflamino. What's the difference? Haki karmelei. The karbech Yisrael, honorable is the Yisrael. Kehechem miyakri ba'avosecha. So be honored to your fathers. So again, this is another question which, as of now, we do not have an answer. Okay, let's see. Maybe we have another question though. So we saw question 10. Question 11. So what does that mean? What exactly is the question? And what's the nafkamina and mehecha nifshat. Okay, so we didn't actually get to the maskana over here, which we're going to see later on. But nishvit, so we'll see the answer. Okay, we didn't see this one yet. Actually, we saw the question. We didn't get to the teretz yet. Question TA25. Mahem shnei tzaddim the time of the kvura. Ma nafka b'neim. What's the nafka mina burial? Maybe it's kapara or the bezoyan. The nafka mina b'omer shloi kvuruhu. Yishum bezoyan no lav kol kamine. So TA25. That's the question. What is the significance of this, of doing kvura? Is it for the bezayon of, again, the person who's decomposing, and therefore if he says don't bury me, we don't care, we're going to listen? Or is it kapara, and he says, it's fine, I don't want the kapara, right? And by the way, that means even if a person is buried, he doesn't achieve kapara by that. So that's the question. Who's in boy the lishata. Question TB26. Ha'im mis'avlim oininim al harugi beisnim adua. So this we had earlier on the Mishnah on the top of Memvav Amud Beis, which was the same question as question 10. This is TB26. So I wrote loy mis'avlim mimnei hakapara shel meis al yochel oininim al harugi beistin shlo yavaze es hameis va'oininim hu rak bulei v'loy b'maisa. Question 27. Iboyhu haspei the yikar dechai yikar deshchivi manishab the iboya. So this is again, we're really going to see this on tomorrow's daf. So we will hold off to see that answer until tomorrow's daf.